8 months had passed since Alex had walked out of that small, sunlit apartment he and Eleanor once shared. 8 months since he had slammed the door on a chapter of his life that, at the time, had felt irreparably broken. Divorce had left him hollow, a man wandering through days with no meaning beyond the predictable hum of his office and the occasional empty dinner at home. He tried to tell himself it was for the best. He repeated mantras he didn't believe, convinced himself that Eleanor had never loved him the way he had loved her. And yet, beneath every forced smile and every routine-driven day, there was a quiet ache, a soft, persistent whisper that something precious had been lost. It was a crisp autumn afternoon when fate decided to remind him of that loss. He had gone out to grab a coffee at the corner cafe, the one they had once visited together, laughing over trivial jokes and planning vacations they never took. The smell of roasted beans and warm pastries hit him like a memory he hadn't realized he was carrying. And there she was, Eleanor, standing near the counter, her hair catching the sunlight in a way that made his chest tighten. But it wasn't just her, there was a gentle curve to her belly, unmistakable and undeniable. She was pregnant. Alex froze, his coffee slipping slightly from his grip. His mind reeled through a cascade of emotions, shock, disbelief, longing, and an unexpected surge of something he hadn't felt in months, hope. He wanted to approach her, to speak, but fear clenched his throat. What if she resented him? What if she had moved on completely, and this child, this miracle of life she carried, had nothing to do with him? For days, he wrestled with whether he should reach out. Every scenario played out in his mind. He imagined awkward conversations, rejection, tears, and awkward silences. And yet, the more he thought about it, the more he realized he needed to see her, not to rekindle what had ended, but to understand. To witness the truth that had blossomed silently while he had been absent. When he finally gathered the courage, it was a quiet Sunday morning. He found her at the park near their old apartment, sitting on a bench beneath the soft shade of an oak tree. She looked serene, fingers resting on the curve of her belly, a gentle smile playing on her lips as she spoke to the child within, perhaps reading a book aloud or simply humming a tune he couldn't catch from where he stood. "Eleanor," he said softly, almost a whisper, afraid to shatter the moment. She looked up, surprise flickering across her face, then recognition. Her eyes, the same warm hazel that had once held his entire world, widened just a fraction. "Alex," she replied, her voice calm but edged with uncertainty. He sat down beside her, careful not to invade her space. Silence stretched between them, heavy but not uncomfortable. It was the kind of silence that held truth, a pause filled with unspoken words, lost time, and shared history. 8 months, he said finally, the words tasting strange on his tongue. "Yes," she replied, a small, knowing smile forming. 8 months of changes, of life moving forward. You heard about the baby." Alex shook his head, guilt tightening his chest. "No, I didn't know. I didn't ask." Her eyes softened. "It's okay. I wanted to tell you, but I also wanted to respect everything." She touched her belly gently. "I kept it. I never considered abortion. I wanted to see this life grow, even if it meant doing it alone." The revelation hit Alex harder than he expected. Not because he had assumed anything, but because he realized in that moment the depth of her strength, her courage, and the love she carried, not just for the child, but for life itself. He felt a wave of shame wash over him for every doubt he had held about her. And he realized, too, that he had misjudged her strength, thinking she would crumble under the weight of his absence. I never imagined you'd be able to do this on your own," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "You're incredible." Eleanor looked at him with quiet kindness. "We all have our own battles, Alex. And some of them, we have to face alone." For a moment, they simply watched the world pass by, the children running past, the leaves drifting from the trees, the sun casting long golden rays across the grass. And in that shared silence, Alex felt a stirring in his chest, a mixture of admiration, regret, and a longing to be part of this new life, in whatever capacity she would allow. "I want to help," he said finally, the words tumbling out before he could second-guess them. "Not because I expect anything from you, but because I see you. And I want to be there for this child. For you." Eleanor studied him for a long moment, weighing the sincerity in his eyes. Finally, she nodded. "I think that would be good. The baby could use more love. And so could I." Over the following months, Alex quietly re-entered their lives, not as a husband, but as a partner in this new journey, a journey that had nothing to do with romance and everything to do with humanity, compassion, and shared responsibility. He attended prenatal appointments, learned the names of the doctors and nurses, and even decorated a small corner of Eleanor's apartment as a nursery, filled with warm colors, soft blankets, and little toys that smelled faintly of hope. The day the baby was born, Alex held Eleanor's hand through every contraction, whispered words of encouragement, and marveled at the resilience she had shown throughout the months. And when the cries of new life filled the room, he felt an overwhelming surge of love, not just for the tiny, fragile being wrapped in a blanket, but for Eleanor, who had carried the burden of her fears and joys with unmatched grace. As he looked at her exhausted but glowing face, Alex realized that life had given him a second chance, not to reclaim what had been lost, but to participate in something profoundly beautiful and transformative. He understood now that love isn't always about possession or expectation. Sometimes, it's about witnessing courage, offering support, and embracing humanity in its purest form. Years later, when they told the story of how they came together, it wasn't framed as a tale of romantic reunion. It was a story of trust, resilience, and the quiet power of kindness, the power to honor life even when it was inconvenient, the courage to face the unknown with open hearts, and the miracle that happens when people choose generosity over judgment. Alex often found himself watching Eleanor cradle their child, the soft morning light spilling across their small apartment, and he felt a warmth in his chest that had nothing to do with romance and everything to do with humanity. Life, he realized, had given him a lesson he would carry forever, that even in the wake of endings, there are beginnings waiting to surprise us, waiting to remind us that hope, courage, and love, in its most selfless form, can bloom in the most unexpected places. And as he held his child for the first time, feeling the small, perfect heartbeat against his own, Alex whispered a silent promise, to honor life, to protect love, and to carry forward the remarkable gift of compassion that Eleanor had shown him, 8 months after a divorce, and for the rest of their days together.